Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Misha McKittrick. This is a podcast where we believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that gratitude rewires your life. It rewires your entire experience. And I'm excited today to chat with you about the most effective ways that we can employ gratitude in our life. Before we get started, I'm really excited to tell you my 16-year-old son and I created something. We created a business, and I'm so pumped to be able to do this with him so that he can have something that he can do for work in between his insanely busy schedules with school, soccer, football, all these extracurricular things that he's doing and spending his time doing. It's really important for me for kids to still work and to earn their own money. So we've had to get a little bit creative, and I'm so happy that we have, because we've been able to be learning business together and all kinds of things. All of this to introduce that we started a jewelry company. Jewelry that allows you to bring meaning and intention into your own life, whether you wear it yourself or whether you give it away as a gift, because each piece comes with deep and incredible meaning. And I'm literally so excited. We have 4 pieces. They all have something to do with like keeping your fire lit inside of you, like staying in a motivated space and wearing this incredible, beautiful necklace as a reminder for that, or reminding you that you are limitless. This energy, this light, this source can flow through you. And because you know the source of it, it's unlimited, and you get to give as much light and love as you want away. Those are the themes of 2 of the necklaces summed up really quickly, just to kind of give you an idea of what it is. But they come beautifully ready for a gift if you're trying to find a gift that actually means something and bring forward something that's really powerful, from what you're giving them, to be able to hold on to that meaning and that intention. So if you want to check it out, it's truevlane.com. That's kind of a modern twist for being truly awake in life. True and vive. So TRUVILANE.com. truevlane.com. You can see the pieces there. You can read the meaning cards there, and you can decide what might be appropriate for you or a gift that you might be giving. We would love your support. And also, I'm thrilled to be in the midst of gratitude season. Like, gratitude season, I want to always just be part of my life, right? But I love that it seems to be turned up at Thanksgiving. I think it also helps us counteract all of the getting, right, that we're doing, all of the acquiring, the consumerism, all of that stuff. I think the gratitude, especially when we drop into it, helps us counterbalance that. There's incredible things that gratitude does for us, as we will get into in this podcast episode specifically, because I wanted to make sure that we drop into that as we are, coming into this Thanksgiving season. But this gratitude meditation collection is 50% off. And I'm telling you, I think there's 8 meditations in the gratitude meditation collection, and each one of them is designed to drop you into heart coherence and to help you feel gratitude, to actually experience gratitude, and to bring your whole body into coherence, right? Your heart and your brain and all the other major organs inside of your body, all of your cells, to bring all of this into coherence with each other. So all you really need to do is go to myfriendmisha.com and find the meditations, and then find the gratitude meditation collection. And I will leave a link for you to go directly to that in the show notes below. And you just need to use the code GRATEFUL and you'll get 50% off. Also, what's really cool is that I updated that sales page so that one of the meditation collections, the Gratitude for a Mentor meditation, is completely free. So if you just go to the page, there's a free meditation on that page, and you can do that meditation to sort of get an idea of what the meditations in the collection are like. So hopefully that is something that really serves you. I hope that you have a blast with your families this Thanksgiving and that you have people to gather with. If you don't, find some. Go and create some, because there will also be other people who are looking. This year it was almost just Jake and Tice and I, which was super random. But then it turned out not being, and we have family that, it all works out, right? But I was like, okay, there's something really cool that's going to unlock this holiday season for us. Somewhere cool that we get to be, or people that we get to be with. And I know it's going to be incredible. So I just want to encourage you to truly reach out of yourself and create Thanksgiving to be exactly as you want it, and go into it with intention. Go into it with especially a grateful heart, and that will help you see all of the opportunities before you, all the things that you can do with your people, all of the intentional things that you can drop into to make it a very meaningful holiday. And I'm especially wishing you a grateful heart. Okay, now let's drop into today's episode. I'm so excited to talk about one of my very favorite subjects, simply gratitude. When your body speaks the language of gratitude, your entire world, literally your entire experience as you go through your life, is so different. This is kind of a tiny little bit of what I hope to encapsulate today and help to illustrate for you, and then more importantly, really drop you into feeling your own gratitude and being aware and literally being in a state where your heart is full and perhaps even overflowing. As you reflect on gratitude just for a moment right here at the beginning, I want you to think of times when you have felt immense gratitude. And there's a chance that this memory of gratitude that is sitting inside of you came at a time when your heart was broken open, right? When your world was falling apart and someone showed up for you, or when you lose someone, right? Or something, and then we realize how much we actually have. Or maybe you've gone without touch or deep connection or communication. And then when someone shows up in your life like this, you become so grateful. A couple weeks ago, I was messaging with a friend, and I was simply talking to her about, the plans for the weekend, what was happening, what was going on. And I was telling her that my husband and I were going to go to a cabin with my youngest and like his whole group dance date. This is something that we do a lot of where we live. The kids have a lot of dances that they go to throughout the school year, like 5. And I know in lots of other parts of the country, these kids get to go on maybe 1 or 2 dates, like prom dates. We're talking like the big thing, the whole day, and then getting ready at night and having like a beautiful dress or outfits that they put on. Nonetheless, I was talking to her about this experience and what we were going to do. And this was part of their day date. And then they were going to come home and get ready and do all of the things, And her response to me was just like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so happy for you. She's divorced. And she gets limited time with her kids because of it, right? She has shared custody, and it's really tough. And she's like, I wish so bad that I was going to a cabin with my husband to support and be supportive of my child and their friends. And that awareness of withoutness dropped me into all of the haveness, right? Like, it was so good, because the way that she said it to me was not self-deprecating. She was just like, Mish, like, drop in to how good this is. She was very much in the camp of, just supporting and cheering for me versus being like in the camp of woe is me, And that's kind of an important thing. That's a whole nother topic of something that we could also talk about. But my awareness of her situation made me drink in that experience much deeper, right? And so sometimes I think we find gratitude when we are in recognition of what we don't have or maybe like that our hearts are broken open for some reason. But what I really want to talk to you about today is like, what if we didn't have to go without or be present to someone who is going without to find the feeling of gratitude? I mean, it's great to open our eyes and to be able to really be aware of what we have. I think a couple of years ago, I did this little, story or reel on my Instagram of these kids who, what they were asking for Christmas, and contrasting that to kids that grew up during World War II, and they asked for meat, and then you just suddenly go, oh, I have so much to be grateful for. But again, what if we didn't have to be aware of people that went without so that we could just be grateful for what we had, so that we could just really believe, like, I am so blessed and I'm so grateful for the things that I have, and just to be able to feel this really powerful feeling inside of us. Okay, because what I've done to prepare for this episode is to do and drop into a lot of science behind gratitude and what gratitude does for us. Honestly, that is something that I geek out over immensely. Like, I love diving deep into that. And something that was really cool is that I decided to look up a bunch of things. And one of the things that I found was this podcast by Andrew Huberman. And his podcasts are like 2 hours long, really chock full of science. And you really are listening through the science, right? And so I'm going to give you just a couple of bullet points because that can be exhausting for some people. But what was so cool about this podcast episode is that a lot of the science that he states was science that, like, I have gone over multiple times in this podcast, right? With the heart and brain connection and basically, what this state or heart coherence or gratitude state, these high flying feelings of emotion, can actually do for us. But what was so cool about it is that it was completely different sources. So confirming the same thing. There was one of the studies that he cited from scientific reports that talks about how repeated gratitude practice actually changes the way your brain circuits work and the way your brain and your heart interacts. We know that. Okay, keep moving on. It changes the resting state in the brain regions that have to do with emotion and motivation. Now, emotion is not new to me. Motivation, I don't know that I've ever really said it that way or thought of it that way. Naturally, if we're feeling better, we're just motivated better, right? But I've never zeroed in on the fact that there's a brain region that is highlighted that has to do with motivation. So when you practice gratitude often, it changes your motivation. That's rad, right? It's so good. It also makes anxiety and fear circuits less likely to be active, and for circuits for well-being and motivation to be active. So that coincides a lot with, like, high vibration feelings and low vibration feelings, and the inability to feel them at the same time. That coincides with that, right? It basically kind of like shuts down the regions of our brain that are overactive when we're trying to just survive, when we're filled with fear and anxiety and doubt and grief and criticism and all of these like nitpicky, yucky attitudes that we actually don't even want to embody, but we become addicted to those chemicals and we forget that we have the power to rewrite that. And I'm telling you that gratitude does this. It makes your life better by adding to the good and at the same time taking away the bad. And so another thing that Huberman was really pointing out in his podcast was the most effective way to actually experience gratitude internally. Because probably the most popular thing you've probably ever heard is start a gratitude practice. Just write down the things that you're grateful for. I'm sure that you have heard that. Or even as we're approaching Thanksgiving, sitting around the table and, declaring what we're grateful for. I would venture to say that one almost is a little bit more effective because you're making a public declaration and you have more possibility of actually dropping into the feeling than you might if you are simply just trying to list things that you're grateful for. especially if you're trying to list like 100 things. You really get into list mode versus feeling mode, right? And that's the key. Feeling is the key. We know that because we talk about heart coherence, and we know that when we drop into heart feelings and heart emotions, what we're doing is we're unlocking our heart to feel, to literally grow like the Grinch, right? Sizes bigger, 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 bigger. Oh, it's so good. And you just feel your heart beating, and it is incredibly and overflowingly like bliss, okay? But one of the things that Huberman said that was a very effective way to drop you into that feeling is to use story. And he talked about different reasons why our brain is so wired for stories, for a narrative, for this is something that happened. And especially when the story is about receiving help or extreme gratitude, genuine exchange of gratitude in some way, right? Like being seen, supported, lifted in some way. This real moment of being able to have that exchange or that experience in life. And then the key to re-feeling it is knowing the story and knowing what the person's state was before the experience, then the experience, and the person's state after the experience. So knowing how it shifted because of this genuine exchange. And that is the most effective way to drop into gratitude. That's based on Huberman. And what Huberman actually talks about is writing down bullet points from the story. Like you need to know the story to be able to like rehearse it in your mind. But he talks about being able to repeatedly use the same story in your life, whether it's about you or about someone you love or about something, just something that's very touching to you. And to be able to use this story over and over to bring a repetitive feeling from a repetitive story of gratitude. And he says, write down bullet points from the story and then be able to read off those elements and feel them for 1 to 5 minutes. That's literally what he says. Okay. So comparing that to like heart coherence, right? What we're doing when we are in heart coherence is we're literally getting into a breath pattern that is supportive of coherence. And when we get into that breath pattern, we call up heart feelings some way. We call up love, we call up gratitude, we call up appreciation or care for someone or something in our life, and we feel. And we teach our heart to feel so that we can drop into this feeling over and over and over again. Okay? So a little bit different approaches, but do you see how like they complement each other so well? And perhaps it doesn't quite matter. Like really whatever works and is most effective for you. I loved so many points that he talked about in the podcast. Feel free to listen to the whole 2 hours about ways that this benefits your life, the way that it benefits your emotional experience, your emotional resilience, you know, basically the entire way that you experience life. Because our whole experience isn't that I live in this world, in this country, in this town, in this house, because I have the same people that have lived in the same house, in the same city, in the same country, in the same world that have had different experiences. What we're really experiencing in this world is what happens internally, what happens inside of us. And if dropping into gratitude rewrites that experience, it rewrites our whole life. It's so rad. And so I love getting deep into the science about what it actually changes. It changes, you know, even our resting state of how emotionally we naturally feel. It changes the coupling or the relationship between our heart and our brain, and therefore all of our other organs. It is so fascinating, so beneficial. It literally rewrites not just your brain, not just your heart, but your life. So like, I want to, at the very beginning, stress the science, stress the benefits, and also really be able to drop you into the idea of the importance of story. Because one thing that I really want to do with you is to be able to help you find your own gratitude stories, your own gratitude anthems for your life and for your family. Because we are the storytellers in our family. And when we realize that there's so much power in story, and story is a very natural, normal thing to talk about, especially if you make the story entertaining while you tell it. Like, it can grab people's attention and then pull them in. And especially if it's the best of the best stories that you do retell in your life, your kids will know them, your spouse will know them, even your grandkids will know these stories. These are stories that are so pivotal that you tell about your family, about times when you received help, when you were supported or lifted by other people, when you experienced genuine gratitude with other people, where it was given and where it was received. I want you to think for just a moment, okay, about how this actually even happens in Scripture. I want you just to think about the Exodus story. And I want you to think about how many times, if you have studied Scripture, you see that story be brought up. It's brought up to restore faith. It's brought up to help them drop into a certain feeling like gratitude and an awareness of the reality of God in their life, right? We have everything that has to do with the Passover that is celebrated year after year after year. All of these things, right, that really direct back to the retelling of a really big story, of a really big event that happened, because remembering is so vital. Remembering the stories is so important. Because you know what? It reshapes us. These stories hold emotional codes that when revisited, they reopen your heart. They remind you of that feeling, and it can really drop you into gratitude, among lots of other things. Like, yes, a thankful heart opens our awareness to the presence of God. Okay, that's a quote by David O. McKay that I love. But even just the simplicity of, what you appreciate appreciates. Like, whatever you focus on grows. Like, let's focus on all of this that we have to be grateful for, and especially the really big stories in our life, because that gives us more to be grateful for. It primes our heart to attract more things like that. And it literally resets our mental states. It helps us so incredibly much. Okay, so let's drop into some examples of stories. Just settle in and think about your own stories as I share some of mine. These are stories that, yeah, they might drop you into gratitude in the moment, but they'll also probably bring you into like, oh my word, something similar happened to me and my family. And those are the ones. Those are the gems that I'm looking to help you find. Okay, so there was this time, I want to say maybe 10 years ago, my husband was out in the garage and he was hanging a rack for our paddle boards. It was a weekend night. A couple of my kids were, just with friends, and one of them was asleep upstairs. And things went from a really easy-paced, slow-going, kind of working on projects night to absolute urgent emergency. Jake called me on the phone. I picked up the phone and I could hear, shh. And he said, Mish, I hit a gas line. You got to come home, because I was on my way to grab one of our kids from their friend's house. And I ran home. I was yelling, I'll call 911. You get Tice out of the house. Get Tice out of the house. And he ran upstairs and he woke Tice up, brought him downstairs. I got home, Tice ran out to the car. I'm on the phone with 911 and she is yelling at me, "Get away from the house. Get away from the house. Tell him immediately to leave the house." And literally I was like, "Please, Jake, come, just hurry." And I'm like sitting there in the car, like with the window down, like waiting outside of our house for him to get in so I could like do the rescue getaway. And Jake was running. He grabbed a wrench and he went around the side of the house and he turned the gas off. And then he ran to the car and he just got in the car and we both just looked at each other. And the lady was telling us, "Drive away from your house, drive away, away, away." She said, "With the fire department's on the way, just wait down the street." And so we did. The fire department came. They checked out the whole house and we waited for a very long time. And they came back out and we were talking with some of the firefighters and they were explaining to us that one of the fire departments in the state had a situation where there was a gas line, I don't know, leak or whatever. I don't know if it was as intense or maybe it wasn't, I don't know. The firefighter and the woman walked in the house together and she flipped on the light and the whole house went up in flames, including everybody lost their lives. It was so horrific. And they were illustrating to us the importance of like staying out of the house for as long as we needed and all of this stuff to really make sure that it was safe to re-enter. And also in that same moment, helping us drop into what was right in front of our face. The reality of how dangerous of a situation that was. I have another story that happened when my kids were little. We were at a place called Gunlock Falls. And this is a phenomenon or something fun that kind of happens when we get a lot of water. And if it's a year where we get a lot of water, then there's a lake nearby that overflows over the top of the dam. And as it flows down the other side, it makes all these waterfalls and swimming holes. And it's a really fun recreational place to go. And we were visiting there. 3 of my friends, we all took our kids. And they had life jackets and they were little boys. We had little boys with us. Like my youngest was probably somewhere around 2 years old. And my kids, I was kind of just sitting on the side of the rocks, chatting with friends. We were hanging out. The kids were jumping over this little, waterfall and climbing up the side and then jumping into the swimming hole. And then they would swim and they would get back out and then they would climb back up and they just could have done that all day long. They were having so much fun jumping off these little mini, cliffs into these small swimming holes. And they were everywhere. Lots of people had these little swimming holes, and this was just the one that we came to and we were swimming at. Well, where the water was coming out of the swimming hole, the water had been running over those rocks and those rocks were slippery. So when my child, my middle, he was probably about 5, somewhere 6, somewhere in that range, he slipped on one of those rocks and he started to go down with the water, with the current. Now, the thing that's important to know about what was below is there was one little drop off and then there was a really big drop off, like the kind of waterfall that you could die from. Okay. In fact, that very week, a little bit later in the week, I was in the mall shopping and this girl was walking around on crutches. She had broke her leg. She was on the phone with someone and she was telling them, "Yeah, I jumped off one of the big waterfalls over at Gunlock and I broke my leg." So she was lucky because she also knew where she was jumping and could avoid some of the rocks. So you can see this was a very precarious situation that we were in. My son was being swept away in this current and I was on the other side of this, river, still a small river, but there's no way for me to have run across the river or run into the river. It was impossible. Like I would have gone down with him And I couldn't even catch him anyway. I was running along the side, and my friend brought her oldest son with her, who was a senior in high school. And when he saw it happen, he immediately started running as hard as he could. And this guy is like a crazy athlete. He was running as fast as he could alongside my son. And I'm on the other side of the river screaming, Jackson, save my son, get my son. And then all of a sudden, like literally right before all of our eyes, my child popped up out of the water. It looked like someone grabbed his life vest and pulled him up by the life vest. And then Jackson was there and he wrapped his arms around him. Okay, I hope you heard my words. Jackson did not pull him out of the water. He was literally saved. And we were all completely aware of what happened that day. We all left. Every single one of us was so somber. Even the kids that were all with us that had just been really frolicking and having the day of their life, right? We all left. And I mean, that night, these kids crept into their mom's rooms and slept with them. They were so overwhelmed and touched by what had happened that day. We were very aware of that gift and of that blessing. There was another time at Christmas when my kids were young, and actually we were struggling financially in a really huge way, so big. And, lots of people wouldn't have known that. That was just the year that we were having. And I was so concerned about Christmas and how was I going to make Christmas work, And I knew we would pull off the basics. I knew we would pull something off, for the kids and all this business. But it still felt like such a stressor, such a huge stressor. And it didn't for sure feel like they were going to get, anything close to what they wanted on their list. Our bishop, who is, our religious leader over the area where we were assigned to go to church, he came by with an envelope and he just said, this is from an anonymous donor that has no idea who this is going to, but someone in our ward or in our church wanted it to go to someone who was in need, and the bishop was aware of our situation, and so he brought it to us. When I opened that envelope, there was like $200 for each child. And then what was so incredible that just caused me to totally break. This is so simple. But at the time, it was so, we were at such a lack that it was so incredibly appreciated. It was simply a gift card to a restaurant and 2 movie tickets that gave instructions for mom and dad to please go on a date for Christmas. And that was truly just so incredible because not only did we receive it with incredible thanks, but there were levels of that gift that were filled with so much love. And what was really cool is that we had no idea who it was from. So it kind of felt like, I wonder if they were the doer of the good deed. Oh, I wonder if they were the doer of the good deed, it just made my whole heart really appreciative towards just everyone that we went to church with. So I told you these stories specifically to hopefully unlock gratitude for you and to also unlock stories in your own life. Stories that may have been close calls. Maybe you've had unexplainable angel stories, or stories where you were blessed with something that you needed or that made your life better. Stories of times when someone showed up for you or your family in some way. These stories are so vital and life-changing to put on repeat, both in your own mind and to be a storyteller in your family, because stories are so important. Gratitude literally is the closest thing that we have to a secret weapon, right? Like our heart and the capability that we have to drop into these heart feelings. That is a secret weapon that can literally alter your life. And it's so great if you do heart coherence, if you have done, one of my courses to learn about heart coherence, or if you've learned about it from another source or another way, or if you simply have a practice of actually feeling gratitude very regularly in your life. Some people are really just good at that. Maybe they were taught it, as a way of being, as life was being modeled for them. But what I hope that you understand that I'm handing you is the power to be the storyteller in your family. Because if you can help people's hearts drop into gratitude repeatedly, over and over, and it's okay. It's actually even more effective if the stories are retold, because they get stuck in our minds. So I hope that you find a list of stories that you can share with your family, perhaps even this Thanksgiving, stories that you will be able to call up and to remember. You know how incredibly effective it would be to call up a story that really dropped you into gratitude and then drop into a heart coherence meditation and allow those feelings to basically play. You're pushing play on a movie from your life, and it's able to drop you into a feeling that your heart has memorized, that brings you into coherence, that changes your life. I hope that today you were able to download and understand a glimpse of the reasons, because it's endless, of why you would want gratitude to be on repeat in your life, and to be on repeat, especially at this time of year, in this season, that you were able to recognize the need for using story, using narratives of things that really have happened to help drop you into that state, and the power that you have in your family to be a storyteller for them as well. Like, use these stories for yourself, but also the power that you have unlocked to be a storyteller to help your family swim in the incredible feel-good chemicals, the rewriting the way that the heart and the brain interact, being able to literally just drop into a feeling that rewrites the way that we experience life, whether we're talking the chemicals in our body, whether we're talking about how it makes us a magnet for more incredible things, or maybe we're talking about the way that it overrides negative thoughts. Maybe, it doesn't really matter if we're talking about the way that the whole body comes into coherence as we do these practices. There's enough evidence that we have lightly gone over that helps you to see, okay, this is going to change my life. And I hope that through the recognition of these things, and especially understanding the importance that the narrative, the storytelling, has to do with this, I hope that in some way that has unlocked for you the power that lies inside of you, and reminding you that you have more power than you think you do. I hope this episode made a great impact on you, and if it did, please share it with someone that you love. As a reminder, you can support the Mindset Check podcast by using our Amazon link when you do your shopping this holiday season. Amazon really is a place that like I can't even imagine doing Christmas without Amazon because it makes it so simple and it's lickety split. I love it. I buy everything from big gifts to stocking stuffers and everything in between. And I hope that if you are going to Amazon, that you would take just a moment to type in, instead of just a simple A and then an M, right? Because Amazon pops up because we're so used to using it. If you would type in the entire amazon.com/shop/my friend Misha, then what actually happens is my friend Misha, the podcast, would be able to get a affiliate commission for the things that you purchase while you shop on Amazon. And it doesn't hike up the price for you at all. It's just a way for you to recognize, hey, I heard Misha say that I could use her Amazon link and I want to support the podcast. I want more messages like that. And I know this is helpful to be able to keep that going. So if you don't mind, I would love, love, love it if you would shop that Amazon link this holiday season and give back to the podcast that you really love. Also, our next podcast that we have coming up is very fun. We have a guest named Karen Drucker. She's literally a delight. I can't wait to introduce you to her. So make sure that you're subscribed and tuned into the podcast so that you don't miss that episode coming up on December 1st. All right, my friend, before I leave you, I want to share with you a quote by Eckhart Tolle. He says, "Acknowledging the good you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance." Until next time, my friend.